Okay, what's up, everyone? It's Matt Rosick. This will be the first work in progress on the quarter scale Wolverine's Samurai Wolverine, sculpted by Franco Carlesimo. And in my intro video, I went over a couple of the trouble points on this kit. Overall, it's really good, but there are some fitting issues and some areas that need to be addressed. So we're going to work from the bottom up. So I think in my intro video, I mentioned how it's kind of loose in the legs here. And I was initially going to glue the feet in, but this boot's really nice and snug. No issues there. It's this one right here. So because of the way this is packed, I think I need to be able to take this apart and ship it separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rekey this foot. And what we're going to do is we're just going to fill in the void here with some body filler. Some Bondo, and I've shown this before in other videos. It's nothing new. So let me get my stuff out. As usual, I'm not prepared. I just use cardboard as a mixing board. I got a bunch of these postal USPS boxes. I just use them for mixing boards. And we're going to need some paint thinner because we need to take the paint or the primer off the boot. I'm going to key it in here. I'm going to rekey this boot. So I've got to strip the paint off or the primer off this boot so the filler will stick. Otherwise, it won't stick to anything. I'm going to clean this off. And it won't hurt if I scuff it up a little bit too with sandpaper. There's not a whole lot of primer on this piece. Sometimes these factories just put a ton of primer on the pieces because they're trying to hide print lines and stuff. But Owners does a really good job on their cleanup. Put a Q-tip in there. I'm just going to make sure I get all that primer off. Like this. Okay, so that's on. Well, I'm going to go ahead and scuff up the inside a little bit. Just lightly. Just get the filler, some tooth to bind to. You can use Aves to do this too, but then you have to wait 24 hours, or at least you have to wait about 3 or 4 hours before it to start setting up before you can move on. With the Bondo, I can move on relatively quick. It only takes a few minutes to set up. Okay. Just like that. And I don't care what this looks like on the inside. This is not going to be pretty. It looks pretty now, but I don't care because you're not going to see it. So I'm going to give it one more rinse with some thinner to get all that residual dust out. Just like that. I need my Vaseline, which is right there, because we need to make sure we Vaseline the other side so it doesn't stick. So, the Q-tip here. Actually need to get a new. This one's almost empty. After about 10 years, I've just about used this up. And we want to make sure we Vaseline this key and anywhere that Bondo may squeeze out. So it's going to be messy. It's okay because I haven't washed these parts yet. We wash everything after we get all the rekeying done. Everything. That's when we can wash the parts because it's pointless to wash the parts before you do all this because they're going to get dirty and messy. Now I do see, well, that's part of the reason why it's wobbly. It's hitting that. I see a little sludge right there. I'm going to take that out. Get a little bit of sludge right here. That may be why it's, I just now noticed this, but we're going to rekey it anyway. Okay, there we go. Let's clean that up in case that's creating any issues. Because you want to get this covered very well all around, all sides. And then you accommodate for any ooze out. So that if anything does ooze out, you can just peel it right off. It's not going to stick. So I get it all over. Q-tip's dead. So I get it all over the pants, all around the edges here, up in this area. Okay. And I look at this in the light, and I'll kind of, because sometimes it's hard to see where you have it and don't have it. So if you look at this in the light, you kind of see where it's shiny. Where it's shiny is where you have the Vaseline. Where it's not shiny, you need to put some. Okay, so that's been Vaseline. I just use Bondo. Bondo's a brand name. People always ask me, what kind of filler you use? Body filler. Bondo's just a brand name. It's not. There's all sorts of different brands of body filler. Bondo's just a brand name. But Bondo's kind of a universal. There's a universal term for body filler a lot of times. Let's see where spreaders. All right, so we need some hardener and spreader. So just need some hardener. I don't think I need a lot of this, so I'm just going to put some over here. And I have the base out here, so I want to put them on the base while this sets up. But I always rather mix more than what I need, then find out that I didn't have enough mix. So I tend to waste a little of this stuff, but okay. I bought a gallon of it last time, so I was going through it pretty quick. Yeah, this is way more than I need. And then for mixing this stuff, you can kind of control how fast it sets up. The more hardener you put in, the faster it'll set up. Now, you can't put too much hardener in that, then it won't set up because you got too much hardener in there. But you kind of want a pink color. You don't want it red. You don't want it gray. So this will set up in about, I don't know, 5 minutes, but you don't let it harden all the way before you pull the pieces apart. Because if you let it set up all the way, good chance you're not going to get them apart. And you want to fold it and push it down. It just gets rid of air bubbles. Okay, so just like that. Now we're going to come in here. I got way more than I need. I'm going to fill this key in like so on each 4 sides. And then hopefully when I push this down, it'll ooze out and it'll fit better. So let's see. I'm going to give this a good shove. And it's going in there and it's getting some ooze out, which is what I want. Ooh, there's a hole. Ooh. Okay, so I didn't account for the hole for the little tie. So I gotta clean this up before it sets up. So you get to see me screw up, which I do quite a bit, actually. Okay. Didn't realize that hole went all the way through, but it does. And we want to make sure we get that cleaned up before the Bondo cures, because it's going to fill in those details and that key, which we don't want. As long as we get it before it's set up, we're okay. I got to kind of work quick because this is going to set up here in a second. Look at that. Right out the gate, you get to watch me mess up. Let's give a pole lock a $2,000 kit to paint. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. It doesn't look clean, but it is. The toothbrush a little bit. There we go. I just don't want to film the details of that rope. I want to make sure I don't film this key either. Okay, so there we go. And I got thinner everywhere, that's okay. So I'm going to let that sit up for a second. And I can just kind of touch over here on my mixing pad. And when this gets to a point where it's kind of bouncy and spongy, then I know it's time to take the parts, these pieces apart. But right away I can already tell he's more stable. So he's not wobbling at that ankle anymore. And I'm going to reprime everything anyway. Once I wash it, I'm going to get a coat of Style Res Gray primer. That's kind of my favorite primer to use for starting point. So I've got some ooze out around here. It's looking good. Not wobbling anymore. I got a little more excess Bondo here to take care of. Good way to start off a work in progress is mess up right away. Okay. Okay, so this is kind of setting up now. So I'm going to let this sit for like another minute. See, when I pull this up, it's kind of got this consistency. So it tells me it's starting to kick off. And then we'll pull this foot off here in a second. And then what we'll do is we'll just clean up the ooze out. Like I said, I don't care what the key looks like on the inside, because we don't get to see it. But I just want to make sure I've got a stable piece. But yeah, he's not shaking now. That's a tight fit in that key right there. Okay, I think I'm going to try to pull this apart. Give it a little wiggle. There we go. So what happens is it creates a vacuum. You can kind of see there what I got. Now I may have to do this again because I did pull out some filler. We're going to let this dry and see how it fits. But I had quite a bit of filler on the male part of the key, which I didn't want. So I may have to do this again. Sometimes it takes 2 times. But see all this ooze out, I just can kind of come in here and while it's still not 100% cured, and I can just trim it like this. Okay, I'm going to let this dry again a little bit until it gets hard, and then I'm going to do it again. What I think is actually happening is I think that the male key is too long and it's bottoming out in the bottom. That's why it's wobbling. Because there's a kind of a decent amount of filler at the very bottom, which tells me that it's bottoming out and it wasn't making contact all the way around. All right, so we're gonna let this dry, and then I'm gonna clean this with thinner again, and I'll re-Vaseline that key, and then I'll do it again, and we'll see what it looks like when we come back. Okay, so I went ahead and I redid that again, and this is kind of what we got now. You can see I went ahead and added a little more around the edges here, so I had more ooze out around the outside of the boot. So I'm just going here and cleaning this up a little bit. I went and carved out all the ooze out that came out that we see from the outside. I got a little bit right here that we got to clean up, and a little bit right here. And you do this while it's still kind of, it's not 100%, it's not 100% solidified. It's still a little on the soft side. So we can carve that pretty easily. And again, I don't care what the key looks on the inside. I just want to make sure that when this boot is on, you don't see any of my Bondo work. So it's like that. And I'm just going to kind of come in here with the sanding sponge and just clean this up just a hair, because I still have to prime and paint this. So I'm just getting in any little loose bits of filler off. Just sand this a little bit, clean it up. And again, we're going to reprime everything anyway, so I don't care about sanding the primer off or anything like that. Okay, so now, like I said, this isn't the prettiest, but we don't care. And I cleaned all the residual, I can clean off kind of I just wanted this with some thinner real quick to get off as much of the Vaseline as possible and the excess Bondo. And again, it's not pretty right now, but once I reprime everything, it'll look good. So now when I put this in there, we have a good fit and it's not wobbly. So let's put this on there and give them a wiggle. Oops. Much more stable. So now he's not wiggling here in that spot. So I feel much better about that, okay? So I just got a little bit of play in the key there, which is fine. Actually, push it down. Actually a pretty tight fit, but yeah, now you have to push this foot down pretty good to get it to fit all the way. So that's now, that spot is now taken care of. So we're going to move up the torso, up the legs here. I'm going to put the armors on the legs and then put the belt on because I need to get the naked torso to fit better. And I want to make sure that that belt is in the proper spot before I do that. I'm going to take these off and figure out where these go. I do have to add a magnet to the legs on that one, on this one armor here. It doesn't have one. And these only fit in one spot. Just a matter of figuring out. That doesn't go there. That doesn't go there. Does it go here? Yeah, it goes there. That's one that needs a magnet on the leg right there. This is the back one, I believe. This is, yeah, like that. This is the front one, like that. And that one. Okay. So now we're going to put the belt on. And that's going to set that in the right spot. Because these armors stay on no matter which torso you're using. Okay, so when we put this on, it's got a lot of, it doesn't fit in there at all. It's like, it's actually pretty bad. I'm going to get the other torso first. That one fits perfectly. It's almost like it needs another belt to fit this sculpt a little bit better. It fits this one really, really well. But it does not fit this one. I only have one belt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I can see where it's kind of hitting a little bit. I can't rekey the belt because if I putty the belt, then the other torso won't fit. So I have to putty this torso. So I think what I got to do is I've got to take off the primer here, Vaseline all this, put this on, and then when I take this off, trim it down and kind of re-sculpt around the waist here. So let's do that. That's what I think I got to do. Actually, that's what I know I have to do. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to come in here and I'll probably do this a couple times. And we're going to take off the primer. going to bring it up a little bit around the sides because we're at the. You can see some of the factory's putty work right there. So just I don't know when you do 3D printing, once you have the print, there's a lot of work to do after the fact. After the print's done, especially when you do molding and casting, you got to make sure you get all the support marks moved out. You gotta prep the print. And it's kind of interesting, if you ever strip a print from like Ownage, you can go and actually see how much work they've done to that print. Or actually, this is the casting. But like, for instance, I had I've mentioned this before, I had the first Bushi Silver Surfer, the master print that a client had purchased from Bushi. And it was in my queue. It was a couple years ago, it was in my queue to fix the print and paint it. Well, I had taken a lot of the primer off the print, and there was a ton of work. I mean, the amount of putty work was like, oh, good. I'm not the only one that has to do all that stuff. Ownage has to do it too. And they're dealing with, multi-$100,000 printers. You can also see here where the mold line was in the casting right there, and they just kind of sanded it smooth. So on its further inspection, you can see where they've done the work and the seam removal and stuff like that. A lot of times by the time you get everything painted, you don't notice it. But as you're working with the piece, you can see all their little areas that they've done stuff to. Okay, that's pretty good. And again, I'm going to give this a light sanding. And I'm going to come up around the edges here a little bit because I have to bring that filler up around these edges. So I initially had thought about waiting to do the tree stuff. So I got to the tree, but I'm going to go ahead and do all the kind of rekeying at the same time. That way I get my workbench messy, really messy once, and then clean it up. So this is a messy process, and I just cleaned my studio. Okay, I'll get this wipe down. Get the dust off so it doesn't affect the filler bonds. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this with a little coarser sandpaper. Let me use a little 80 grit here to scuff this up. So this is, it should be number 37 because I see a 37 at the bottom of the waist here. They got it numbered. I did 50 of these. I showed the label in the first video. This is 80 grit sandpaper. Again, like I said, I get a lot of guys who say, "Oh, the piece is ready to go. It's an Ownage kit." Like, that's great. It's an Ownage kit, but I guarantee it's not 100% ready to go. There's no prep work. How much is it going to cost? Well, I can kind of give you an idea, but I can guarantee there's always something to do prep wise. So even these really high-end kits are never 100% ready to go. Some are better than others. I've had Ownage kits that are about 99% there, and I just had to do a little work. This one is about, let's say, 90% there. I got these few areas that I got to deal with fitting and loose spots. Again, I'm just giving this a little scuff. I'm not really sanding, just scuffing it up. Okay, let's wipe this down again. I want to do a little higher, a little coarser grit on this because this is a switch out. And if he's going to be switching this in and out, I want to make sure that's really got some really good, the filler's really bonded to this. And I am going to attempt to do a tattoo on the back. My client's like, can you do a tattoo? He's like, I've never done one before, but I can try it. If it sucks, we'll paint over it. So past few projects have been a lot of firsts for me. The Spider-Man, a ton of sculpting, which I'm not a sculptor, but people are like, oh, you're a sculptor now. It's like, I guess I am to an extent. I mean, I'm nowhere near what a lot of guys who actually sculpt are, but I'm kind of like one of those people that if I put my mind to it and I just really think about something long enough, I can kind of figure it out. The tattoo is going to be really challenging for me. Because there's some really, really killer examples of it out on this piece. And a lot of guys, there's a few collectors like, tattoos on Wolverine don't make sense because he self-heals and he wouldn't be able to have a tattoo. Like, well, I guess there's some logic to that. But again, this is a comic and none of it's real. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. Like, do what you want. It's your piece. Okay. So now I got a Vaseline the top here. I got Vaseline all this. Let me use a paper towel for that. I'm just going to get it all over because I have a lot of ooze out. I'm going to need a lot of ooze out to do what I need to do here. Oops. It's a big lot. I'm actually going to take this off and do this too, because since this is a switch out, you can do that. And I've got to remember there's a hole here for the sash, so it's going to ooze out there. And I've got to work on that fit too, because the metal peg is too long for the sash and it interferes with the belt. So it's another thing I've got to fit. Some of these little tassels are a little wonky, so I got to work on those. So I've got some work to do before it's ready to paint. I'm not sure if John Allred's pieces had this much fitting. There's not really issues. They're just little areas that, to me, that aren't quite up to snuff as where they should be, as far as, especially on a piece like this and the expense it's going to cost to build and paint it. You know, I'd rather spend a couple hours, and I think my client would agree that I would rather spend a couple hours and spend a little extra money and have me go through and fix all this stuff. Because when you're talking the price that we're talking for a piece like this, another day of prep is worth it, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, why skimp out on all that stuff and paint it, and then you have something that wobbles, or there's a big gap at the waist, or the tree's falling apart. So I think it's worth it. And I think this particular client would agree with me, because I've done a lot of stuff for him, and I actually have God, how many pieces do I have for him here? God, 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 more pieces in my possession for him. So he's been a good client and done a lot of stuff for him. Okay. We're going to do the same thing we did on the boot. We're going to take this. I should have probably mixed this a little on the lighter side, so I have more time to work, but I can do this pretty quick, I think. And where we really need it is around the waist. It's going to look really messy, but it's okay. By the time I'm done, it'll look good. And I'll probably more likely have to do it more than once, but that's okay. Okay. Okay, just like that. Okay. So we got that ring of filler around his waist, which is what I want. And we're going to let that set up for a while. And then pull it apart and see how it looks. Actually, what I'm going to do, since I'm here, while this is still wet, I'm actually going to wipe some of the excess away. Like that. Let's put a little thinner on my paper towel. Just like that. I took too much off there. Dang it. And this is where I can go in and clean this out. I took a little too much off in that spot. Actually, I should just use my finger. Okay, now it's starting to set up. I gotta clean it out of these ropes. Okay. Yeah, so I'll do this again, but we're gonna pretty close the first time. So I got some thinner on this toothbrush and it's getting this excess filler out of these ropes. So if I was using Aves, I could go in there and sculpt it and really sculpt it, but then I have to wait, overnight to keep going. So I like to use the body filler because I can move quicker and keep moving on. And just set up pretty quick. So again, it's a messy process. See right there, I got a little gap still now. I took too much filler out, but that's okay. We'll do it again. And this was really wobbly too. I mean, he was doing a hula dance with his torso. Get a little thinner in a cup here so I can dip my toothbrush into it and just get the filler out of these ropes. Okay. I've got to set up a little bit more before I try to take it off. So there's, you can see even on these really high-end prints, I'm seeing print lines. You can see layer lines. Okay. Let's see if we can get it off. Come on. All right, I'm going to take this off the base and see if I can loosen this up because it's on there tight. I'm going to come back. Okay, so that was scary for a second. I've had a hard time getting parts apart after bondoing, but this was like not coming apart at all. I was like, holy shit, I just didn't glue the torso on, but I got it off. And you can see the new key here. We'll let this dry up. What happens is it creates a vacuum. So even putting it on, it's like super tight. So I'm going to sand this out a little bit, but look how clean that key is inside there. It's like perfect. So it's creating a vacuum is what happens. It doesn't like, it's not like the parts get stuck together like they're glued together. There's a vacuum and you can't. So I had to get a screwdriver there and pop it, get a little bit of air in there. And then I used the rubber mallet. Using my rubber mallet and I tapped it loose. So we got it apart. Thank God. I don't think I was like, hey, by the way, yeah, you can't switch out your pieces on your kit. It's a Naked Wolverine indefinitely. I don't think that would go over well. So anyway, I got to clean up some of this Bondo around here, clean that up. I'm going to clean this key. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and trim this around the edges here and clean this up a little bit. And we'll take a look at it when I come back. Okay, so I've cleaned this key off up here. I've cleaned all the excess Bondo off the belt. You can see it's basically down to bare resin, which is no big deal because everything get reprimed. So now what I'm going to do here is just solidify a little bit. I'm going to go in here and it's just going to start carving away the excess. And we'll see where we have I'll get rid of all this excess Bondo on the skin. We'll just do the light sanding. Can't see what I'm doing. Not on camera. I'm just in here with an X-Acto blade, just kind of get rid of the excess. Now there's some skin texture here in this sculpt that I did fill in a little bit on accident. So what I think I'm going to do is a relatively easy way to kind of replicate that. And what I do is I'll take some Mr. Surfacer 500, which is their thickest primer, and I'll just kind of stipple it onto the surface and then give it a light sanding that'll kind of bring that back a little bit. The skin texture is kind of hit or miss on this. Some places there's a lot of it, other places there's not. But down here where I'm kind of obliterating it a little bit, we'll try to recreate it. So you can see here, there's the sculpt. There's my Bondo. So there's a good 1/16 to an 1/8 inch of a gap that was there in that spot. So I'm taking the blanket and scraping most of this off. So there's a couple spots like right in here. I took too much off, so I'll fill that in. I don't think I have to have that on the torso to do that. I can do it just here. So again, I could have done those A's. I could have put it in there, fill the gap with A's and sculpt it in, smooth it out, but then I have to wait. Again, you know, a period of time for that to start setting up. But with this, I can keep going. Let's do a quick test fit. And boom, man. So that is like 100 times better. There's a little spot right here. We've got to put a little bit more in. And from this side to this side. But other than that, it's perfect. So it's worth the time and effort to do that. And he doesn't wobble anymore. Before this was wobbling. So again, we stabilized him. We filled in the gap. That's a really tight fit. Super tight. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to go ahead and fill in just here in my lap, right here a little bit, kind of around this edge. We're basically from there to here. I'm going to put a little bit of filler, smooth it out, and then we'll clean it up and come back. Okay, so I haven't done the re-putting those few areas, but what I'm going to do is I put it back on I put the torso back on, and I'm going to get a little Sharpie and a mark where I need to put some additional filler, just so I can know where to go. I got most of the cleanup done, so I need a little bit, basically from right here to right about here, just a little more to fill this gap right there. I bring this up higher and point down. You can see that this has been filled in really nicely. A little bit of a gap here. I'm not sure I'm going to really fuss with that too much. Looks like it'll come up when the weight. Let's put the armor back on. Let's see if that closes that up a little bit, because that does have an effect on how this belt sits. Let's do that real quick. Let's see. It was there. It was there. It was there. This goes there, and that goes there. After I get this fitted, then I'll add a magnet to the leg here. Again, I thought about gluing all this stuff on, but I think for shipping purposes, it's wiser not to. Because I think that those could break in shipping. So let's put the belt on. Let's put this back on. And let's see. Yeah, so that having the armors on there lifts the belt up just a hair. And we got a nice fit around there too. So I only got that one little area that I want to add a little more filler from this mark to this mark. So I'm going to do that. And I've sanded this down. I've cleaned up this edge. I'm going to do a little more cleanup, but we're about 90% there on this. And actually, I was able to clean up most of that Bondo without losing too much of that skin texture. But I am going to go back in and kind of recreate that just on that bottom kind of, just like on that bottom 1/4 inch here where I have to sand the Bondo down a little bit. Okay, so let's do a little more filling here. I don't need a lot. It's more than enough. And I'm debating whether I should re-Vaseline this and put it on. I think I need to, because I don't want it, because this key right here, this key is perfect. It fits perfectly. So if I try to go in there and do this by hand, I might mess that up. So I'm going to go ahead and re-Vaseline this area up there. And I'm going to put it all over the ropes this time too. Just in case I get any ooze out on the ropes, I don't have to deal with that. Again, this is all going to get a good wash before everything goes on. So all the Vaseline gets washed off, and I'll wash everything. I usually wash all my parts twice. Wash, rinse, wash. Yeah, I never take a kit, even from a factory, and just throw paint on it. I always wash the parts. Okay, so I'm just mixing up my filler over here. This is going to be a long video. So for those guys who like the 2 and 3 hour videos, grab a beer, because this is going to be a long one. Actually, all my videos are long. But I like to explain things while I'm doing. And I know there's like some YouTube algorithm where like 25 minutes like is the ideal, or 15 minutes, but you know, I don't care. I don't make money off YouTube. Okay. So we're going to just take this filler, just concentrate it on those areas. That need it. Actually a little bit there too. So I took it around to the back a little bit more than anticipated. So we're going to make sure to Vaseline that up. Okay. Do that. Put it on again, give it a good squeeze. And this time, I'm not going to go in there and swipe it. I think my mistake was trying to wipe it off. And it started to set up too fast on me. So that created a lot of extra cleanup that I didn't need to do. So I'm going to let this sit like this. I should be able to get this off no problem because I don't have a vacuum anymore. Yeah, so I got a nice ooze out. And if I just sand that, beat a filler down, I should have a good fit. So we're going to let this dry, clean it up, and then we'll show you the final results. Okay, so the waist rekeying is done. That took a little bit longer than anticipated, but we have a really nice tight fit around everything now. And it looks good. No more gap. So that was, and he's not wobbling. So he's nice and stable. So he was wobbling at the waist. He was wobbling at the foot. Now we're nice and stable. Okay. So the next thing I got to fix, not really a fix, it's an adjustment, is this sash that goes in the side. A lot of Vaseline on everything. Clean this up a little bit. The metal peg is a little too long. And it wants to interfere. So this goes in over here. No, not there. It goes in over here. Oh no, sorry. Wrong one. It goes in right here. We'll figure it out eventually. So it comes out through this hole. Just got a little bond on it. We're going to clear that out. Just kind of knew what would happen. Ah, where'd it go? There it is. Just clearing out the bonder that got used into that peg. Okay. Let's see if this still fits now. It's a tight fit. So the metal peg sticks out a little bit right there, which interferes with the waist sitting down. So I'm going to just trim that off a little bit with some snips here. Yeah, keep putting it in the wrong spot. It's up here. And it's another, man, these keys, they're not quite there. Not to my satisfaction. So I'm going to have to rekey this one again. So when I put this in the belt up here, it doesn't want to go all the way in. See, it sticks out quite a bit. So I think I just need to get a drill bit and drill that out a little bit by hand. It's too big. That's too big. I don't want to make it too loose. I want to make sure it goes in. So I'm going to And drill bit roughly the size I need. Just drill this out a little bit. And there we go. So that's the trick. All right, so now it fits nicely. I'm going to trim that peg just off, just a hair more. It's sticking out just a hair. I don't want it interfering with the waist going down after we spent all that time to make the fit. So that peg, that key needed to be drilled out a little bit. Now I have a nice fit there. So we're going to just continue kind of building this guy up and looking for areas that need improvement. Okay, so that fits nicely. Let's look at these side. These are the tassels, the boots. I think those need a little work too. There. So let's look at this front rope. That's magnet. That fits nicely. No work there. These guys that go in the sides here that hold let's see, it looks like that could use a little work. Yeah, they're just not fitting as perfect as I think they should. Just make sure I got on the right side. Okay, so this one definitely goes on this side. Let's put the waist on, keep everything kind of going up. Boom. Man, that fits good now. Yeah, it's like it's just not. It's not up to snuff, in my opinion. See, that one fits there. Okay, so this one goes here. That one fits nicely. Yeah, okay, that one goes there. I don't think that one needs work. Let's see what this one does now. Okay, this one definitely needs work. So right now, it's not going in because I think the hole is drilled crooked. This needs to come around. So I'm going to try bending this a little bit, bending this pin. So right now it's kind of coming in at an angle from the front to the back, and it needs to rotate around. So and it looks like they tried to bend it at the factory a little bit. Don't want to break the piece. I may just have to re-drill that hole. Yeah, that's not going in at all. So can't tell. Yeah, I need your drill. It's on the right side. That's about right. That's too big. So I need a 7/64 drill bit. I don't know if I have one. I go through drill bits pretty quick. I lose them. I break them. I lose them relatively fast, unfortunately. Well, I'm not sure how much you guys missed, but a phone call came in. My camera stopped recording. Okay, so I had a phone call come in. Anyway, so what I did is I just drilled this hole out, and now this piece goes in all the way. So now it fits better. I got a little bit of a gap here, but I think I want to leave a little flexibility in those so that when the swords, like the samurai swords are in, they can move around a little bit. So I don't mind having that little bit of play in there. I got a little bit of play in here too, so I think that's okay. This front piece fits well. Let's look at the arms. Make sure all this fits well. Let's see, this goes in like that. So, I mean, ideally, these arms are glued and seamed in. Because you can't switch out. Yeah, I don't know why. So I need to ask my client. I need to see if I can pack them. I think I want to glue the arms on, so there's no seam there. And that I will do with Aves. So I'm going to send a message to my client and see if he wants me to glue those on and seam them, because I think that just would look better. And it's just a matter of packing. Can I pack it with the arms on? That I don't know. The way the foam is cut right now, probably not, but maybe. But I can work with that. But I think it's better to glue those on, seam them with some A's, and blend that in, because that's kind of ugly right now. Like, you don't want to seam right there on bare skin. Yeah, so I think that's what we got to do. So I'm going to send a message to him real quick, and we'll see if we're going to do that or not. Okay, so I spoke to my client, and we are going to go ahead and glue these arms on and fix the seams. So for that, again, I need to take the primer off both sides. We're gonna, I don't need to peg them because they're got nice meat. I'm gonna epoxy them with some 5-minute epoxy. So I'm just taking the primer off, so we're down to bare resin. Really need bare resin for primer or for epoxy to work correctly. Just like that. And I also realized that I am missing some pieces. Now that I got this kit secondhand, so about a year ago. So I don't know. What I'm missing are the, I'm going to say the wrong, is it the pommel or the handle part of the samurai sword, and the hand guards and the guards for the blades. So I'm going to have to figure something out. I could probably, if I can mold and cast the ones I have, I can do that. I've never made a mold and casted something, so I'm going to have to pick some people's brains to figure out how to do that. So anyway, all right, so we've got the primer off that arm. I'm going to go ahead and mix up some epoxy, just some 5-minute. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. And I have some little cups somewhere. Hold on. Okay, so I got some 5-minute epoxy. The brand doesn't matter. This is just like Hobbytown epoxy. It's just it's kind of like a no name. It was BSI Inc. And then other companies put their names on it. So we're gonna mix up a good amount here because I want some ooze out around the seam, and I can use that to help fill the gap quite a bit. And just, you want it 50-50. I just kind of guesstimate. And then I'm going to I'm out of epoxy brushes, and epoxy brushes are just kind of cheap brushes you use once and then dispose of. So I'm just going to mix this up thoroughly. And the more epoxy you have mixed at one time, the faster it kicks off. Oops, my stick broke in there. I don't want that floating around in there. That could affect mixing this up. Okay. And then I've got some alcohol here, and any ooze out I can clean up with some alcohol on the Q-tip. And then I'll leave my gap filling to a minimum. So again, we took all the primer off both sides. So I'm just going to put this in my lap for a second so I can work with this easier. I got some on my leg, which is no big deal. Take it off with some alcohol. So I got more than I need, which is fine because I want it to ooze out. Okay, so we got that in there. And we're going to put that in there and we're going to squeeze, 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 squeeze. And we got a lot of ooze out, which is fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get some alcohol. And before this sets up, we're going to wipe away the excess. Again, I make a big mess when I'm doing prep work. I'm not the cleanest worker, but gets the job done. And I'm going to keep this propped up this way while this sets up. So that's filled in a good portion of the seam, particularly underneath the armpit. Kind of see how shiny that is. Got a nice bead of epoxy there. So that'll fill up most of it. And then I'll just have to do a little filling on the front side here with Aves once this sets up. So I'm going to let this cure up. I'm going to do the other side and we'll come back. Okay, so I got that one epoxied. I got this one in. I got a clamp on it just to keep the armor in place. And once this all dries, I'll go around these edges with some more thinners to get rid of the primer, and we'll just put in some Aves around this area and the front side of this one to just blend it all in. So I'm going to let that dry for a little while. The clamp fell off. Sorry. Hold, please. The clamp fell off the arm, and I want to make sure that's clamped in place well while that dries. And that, okay, that's looking good. Let's see. Sorry. Okay, well, that's it. I mean, this cured up pretty fast. It turned yellow. So we're going to put this away for now. Let's see, what else can I do? The next thing would be to do the Aves on the arms. The boots are good. I did go in and try to fit these tassels a little bit more, but what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to glue these in because they're a little wonky. So I think I'm going to glue them in, and then I'm going to do some Aves work. So I'm not happy with, and they're kind of loose. I'm not happy with how they're fitting right here. So I think if I glue them in, then go in there with some Aves and just kind of sculpt around those tassels, it'll just look better. So I'm going to do that real quick while we're waiting for us to dry. So again, I'm not going to epoxy these. I'm just going to use some super glue, but I am going to clean off the primer and the key with some thinner and clean off the primer here. And when I do the Aves work on the arms, I'll do the Aves work on these. That's not there. That's alcohol. Where is my super glue? Oh, sorry, I'm here. We're just going to super glue these guys on. And we're going to make sure we have the right ones on the right side because they are specific. Okay, that one goes there. It'll make painting these a little harder, not much harder, just kind of getting paint up and there in the armor, but I think it's worth it to make sure these blend in nicely. Little glue. Put that in. And I did get a little ooze out on the inside, so I'm going to clean that up because it'll affect my key if I don't clean it up. And now with those in there, I can just blend them in better with some Aves. There we go. It goes that way. Yeah, I'm just not happy with the gap or the way they look. So that one's in. And I did drill out these holes a little bit to try and get it to fit better, but they're not wanting to go in the way I want. So, well, now I just drilled all the way through, which is fine because I'm going to glue it anyway. Oh, there we go. Now I got a better fit. So I ended up drilling that hole all the way through. It just wasn't going deep enough. Now I can glue that in and do a little bit of A's work around the seam. And it'll look like one piece. It won't look like a glued in tassel. Which is what it looked like before. Yeah, it's got a little kind of seam around, a little gap around there I don't like, around the knot. So we're going to fix it. Let's lock it in there with some kicker. Now that ain't coming out. There's one with the boot. And I can pack these away with these in there, no problem. Yeah, that's just going to make it look a little neater, more finished. Okay, so let those dry. And then once the arms dry, I can mix up a little bit of Aves and do some seam work. So I think until I get those done, I don't want to bring the tree parts out and work on those because that's going to take up most of my bench when I'm working on the tree. And that's going to be a slow process. I'm going to do one key at a time, everything fitting. Let's see. Oh, I can add the magnet to the legs. Let's do that. So this armor piece needs a magnet in the leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since I can't drill into there because there's a magnet, what I can do, I'm still going to use my glue tack trick, but I'm just going to I'm going to stick some blue tack in the female key, and I'm going to mark the center of the magnet on the armor with a Sharpie, and it should transfer to the blue tack. We will see. So I'm going to mark this magnet. Oh, that Sharpie's dead. Let's try this big fat guy. I'm going to mark this magnet. And then push it in, and hopefully it transfers to the blue tack. And it did. So now I know where that magnet's got to go. It's not perfectly centered on here. The reason I did, since it's not centered on here, I didn't want to just center it in this hole because then it wouldn't line up. Magnets. Gotta find a magnet. Haven't used them in a while. Leave back, I gotta find my magnets. All right, found my magnets. All right. So, I had to reorganize my workshop the other night. I kind of moved stuff around. I don't need crazy strong magnets, so I'm just gonna use a 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch. Like that. Put these away. Put this magnet to the side for now. And we need to mark the center of this hole. So I'm just going to take this, my drill, and I'm just going to eyeball the center as close as we can. Like that. And then we can take that blue tack out. And we get the location for our hole mark. You can actually see where the hole is supposed to go for the magnet. There's kind of a marking there. And I'm going to start out, I'm going to do it all in one go. We're kind of and this hole doesn't have to be real deep because of the thin magnet. We got a 1/2 inch. Just like that. Now if I put this magnet on the skirt and push that in, that magnet should go in that hole. It does. So now what I'm going to do is I know that this is the side that needs to face out. So I'm just going to put this on the end of a drill bit. And we're going to put in some glue. And I'm going to push that down just like that. And then if you can use something that's not magnetic, use a Q-tip and just wet it a little bit. Oops. Actually, let's do this. Okay. So what we're going to do. What we're going to do is and push that in a little bit so it's below the surface. Let that glue set up for a second. Yeah, I'm going to hit with some kicker. And I can pull that out. And I put some kicker on there. And I like these magnets, the holes in the middle, because I can fill that center. And then do that. Get that set up. And now, a magnet. So that's fixed. All right, we're getting there. A little bit at a time. It probably, like I said, I probably didn't need that because the front skirt kind of holds it on, but it's just added protection. It's supposed to be there, so might as well do it, right? And since I've got the magnet with the hole in the middle, I filled up the backside with glue and then filled that hole with glue and hit it with kicker. That magnet's not going to come out. And there's not a whole lot of pull force on it anyway. Okay, so that's done. That's weird. What happened there? Oh, that's where I drilled. Okay. All right, so that's done. So now we can do some A's work. Since I've had 15 minutes or so to set up, we're going to go ahead and clean the area up again with some thinner, just so the A's has something to stick to. And I'm going to do the same thing around those little ropes on the boots. This should be pretty much clean already. And we just want to put a little little bead in there and smooth it out so it's got a smoother transition in the arms. Okay. It's pretty good. Again, this all looks really messy until we're ready to put primer on it. All right, A's two-part epoxy. It's what I use on the Spider-Man to do all the symbiote and all that stuff. So 2 equal parts. I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. You want them close as possible as far as it mounts. It's got a little too much gray. I'm going to pull some of that off. And then we're going to mix it up. The way I like to mix it, I like to roll it in my hands, fold it, roll it, fold it, and just do this over and over again. So I'm rolling it and I'm folding it in on itself and then doing it again. Now, so you're supposed to let this sit a few minutes before you use it, but it's really sticky in the beginning. That's kind of like, I like to use it right away, personally. And I have alcohol in here, and I don't have any. I'm out of A's Solvacet, whatever it is. It's their kind of their own solvent for A's, but alcohol works just as well. That's what I use. Actually, the Solvacet works better, but alcohol will work. That's what I use on the Spider-Man to kind of smooth things out, and it worked really well. So now I take this and so a little bead. Get my Q-tip with a little bit of alcohol in it. I'm going to start kind of just pushing this in there, and it's going to be messy at first, but I just want to get it on the surface to begin with. Oops. My hands too. Once we get it on there, we'll work it a little bit to blend it better. You just kind of want to get it in the seam first to fill it. I'll just do one on camera because it'll be the same process on the other one. This one's a little easier to get to. So I'm just getting it in, just getting it on to begin with. And now you can see that shininess in the armpit there. That's where the epoxy used out. So that's already been filled. So I just need to take this around to right about there. Okay. And I got to put a little alcohol on my thumb. And I'm going to start kind of just pushing it in. And doing this kind of motion to blend it in. So it's not such a harsh. It's kind of what I'm doing like the Hellboys is the same process. And I'm blending it towards the top because there's hair on those biceps, and I want to fill that in with the A's. Excuse me. Okay. So we're getting there already. And the Q-tip is a great tool for blending because it's soft. So that's looking pretty good right there already. And once it's dry, I may sand it just a little bit. I won't know until after it dries and I see how well it blended. I am going to come in here with one of my sculpting tools and let's try to blend that a little bit better. And ideally, what I like to use is a brush. I just got a kind of crap brush here I can throw away. It's got paint on it, so it's going to get brown, but that's okay. But I was using this on the Spider-Man, and the brush is great because it really gives you a smooth transition. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I went ahead and took it all the way underneath here. Didn't need to, but I did. Q-tip's good. We're getting right there in that little crevice. And this side's just about done. It's looking good. Once I get primer, it'll really tell me what it looks like, but I can sense from here that it looks looking pretty good. Okay. So there you go. That side has been aged and looks like it's blended pretty well. Again, primer will tell me anything, but I think that's pretty good. It should prime up nicely. And now we just have no seams there. Oops, I took a little too much putty off right there. I spoke too soon. Where'd my little ball of Aves go? Oh, I had some. Where'd it go? I don't know. I'm going to push some of this back into that seam. Got a little aggressive with my brush and I pulled a little putty out. And the gap popped out. Sometimes you gotta be careful you don't push too hard on with your sculpting tools because you'll pull the material out of where you want it. Okay. So there we go. That looks really good. So I'm gonna do the other side, same thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the little ties on the boots. I'm not going to show on camera. It's the same process. And then we'll come back. Okay, so I think I'm going to call this a day. We did quite a bit on this because I want to split this up into the next part. We'll do the tree. So, yes, a day's worth of work to get this much stuff done. We rekeyed the foot. I went in and glued these tassels in and did the Aves work, added the magnet, rekeyed the torso, got that fitting well, or the naked torso. And we got these arms glued on and seamed. So now that fits in really, really nice. I'm debating whether or not I rekey the other torso, not because of the gap, but because it wobbles. This one, now it fits so well. And because this key is perfect. So that goes in there great. No wobble, no gap whatsoever. Now the other torso, when I put this on, and it's got the armor on, there's no gap. Now, if you take the armor off, similar to the other torso, let's take these arms off. But see, it's really loose. Man, I think I just might do it because I think it's worth it. If I take this off, there's a huge gap again. So what was that? That's this guy. So I think it's worth rekeying this torso. So maybe I'll do that today. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm not gonna show it. I'm gonna Vaseline the belt, putty this, get it to fit better. I just want it really stable. He just wobbles a lot. It's a loose fit. Even with the armor on, it's really wobbly. And I'm not digging it. So I think that could be better. Again, is it going to take some time? Yeah, it's going to take some time, but I think it's worth it. The armor pretty much covers every gap, but I just don't like how he's unstable. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to worry about puttying this part of the key. I'm not worried about the rest of it. I just want that a tighter fit, so it doesn't wobble. So I'm going to do that off camera. We'll come back and show you when I'm done with that. Okie dokie. So we rekeyed that torso and now it doesn't wobble. So it was worth the extra 30, 45 minutes to go there and do it. So it's a tight fit. Again, I had to, it's creating a vacuum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this out a little bit here. It's not as pretty as the other one, but again, we don't care what it looks like under here because you don't see it. But yeah, big difference, much better fit. I'll probably clean this like, so when I put this on without the armor, you know, there's a gap here and stuff, but what I did is when I fit the torso on, I had the armor on because the armor hits the belt. And I want to make sure that the torso is at the right height. So I put the armor on the torso like this, like you would. And then I put it on with the wet putty and let it ooze out. And then before it had a chance to dry, I took the armor off, cleaned off the armor because there was some putty on the armor. There's actually a little bit right here I missed. So I cleaned off the wet putty from the armor. Except for this little spot I missed. No big deal. So now I know the torso is at the right height for it to hit the belt and fit as best as we can. So both torsos have now been rekeyed and they don't wobble. He's much more stable. So before when I had this together, he would wobble at the feet and the torsos. Now he doesn't do that. So now I'm going to call this video done. And the next one will be working on the tree to get all that kind of figured out. So it's a lot of the same process, keying, adjusting things to get things to fit. I'll probably use aids on some because I may want to make some of the keys bigger. But anyway, I'll explain that when I get to it. But we're looking good. Again, a lot more work than anticipated just to get this guy ready for paint. But again, on something like this, I'd rather spend extra time and get everything nice and stable and fitting well before just slapping paint on it. And my client has like a hula dancer for a samurai. But looking good. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next work in progress video. Bye.